Here's some examples of how you could go about collecting the evidence you need to really back that thesis up. So for example, let's say we're writing on this thesis I picked from one of my examples earlier. AIs could soon replace humans in low-level writing jobs. And so in this case, I remember from the book that there was an example of an AI writing bot that like wrote the scores to football games or something like that. If it had a game, it wrote up a little auto-generated article. So like I could use that as one of my good examples. AI writing bot from the book. And I remember that that was in there. I don't remember exactly where. So you can certainly search through your book if you've got highlights, if you've got notes, you can look back through it, right? You can also, again, you've got the computer here to help you out. So I would go on to like Amazon. If you go into look inside, you can go into the Kindle book here and print book, or I guess if I have to go to print book, but if I go to print book, I can click search inside. And so I remember that the AI had score in it somewhere, so I can click, and you can see page 9 is an example of game scores. That's not the one I want. Maximize the score in the video game. That's not the one I want. But this third one, the Quince Orchard Cougars shut out the Einstein Titans 47-0. So that's an example. That's actually the one I wanted here. So I know that this example is from page 33. So I can look up. And this thing was called, if I look back at it, this thing was called heliograph. So from that, I now have that heliograph example, and that's very strong evidence for my thesis. That's really an example of the AI already doing the thing that I said. I might want to actually make my thesis a little bit stronger here, that like AI could soon replace humans in many writing jobs or something like that, since this is already a low-level writing job. Maybe in the future that will continue to improve, and so they could do even better. And again, this might be a key example that I use, so I might want to search, either look in the notes in the book. So if I look here at the book, it has sort of citation 2 in, I think this is chapter 1? Maybe, no, chapter 2. So if I go into my book, I can find the actual specific source that she used for this. This is heliograph. It's a Washington Post article in chapter 2, so I can actually read the whole article there if I wanted to. I can also just search heliograph in general here. If I search heliograph, I've got a Forbes article on this. That might be very useful to read up some more stuff about. And look, here's a New York Times article, new Rise of the Robot Reporter. That might be a very important article to read, again, to get some other perspective on this. Like, that's actually quite a surprising finding. A third of the content published by Bloomberg News uses some form of automated technology. So again, so that might be some key evidence from the book for, AIs could replace humans in many writing jobs. That's really getting into the sort of specifics of this argument. I also am going to need to talk about, why are AIs able to do that, right? How do these AIs work? In this case, maybe I'll use examples of some of my text generating. So I've got a text generating AI model. That's going to be sort of the backbone of any of these more advanced models that actually write news articles. There are going to be some version of these that are sort of tuned to write in very specific, repeatable ways for specific classes of article or something like that. So maybe I'll use some examples from my text generating AI model. If I'm, talking up the advantages of AI here, I'm going to want to, again, find some examples where the AI is doing a really good job of, in this case, for this AI writing task, it might really be a case of a lot of that sort of context and things like that. So in this case, a good example might be this question answering AI. So here's this model, BERT, and it can answer questions from this text description. So maybe if I'm going off this heliograph example, I've got the Browns beat the Giants 14-10 last night. I ask a question, what was the score? It knows that it's 14-10. Who won? The Browns. So here it's able to do some pretty good basic question answering. It's able to understand the context Now, a question like this, on the other hand, what game was played? If you know some context here, that Browns and Giants are both football teams, you'd know that this was a football game. But since it wasn't in the context, it's not giving a good answer to this for the question answering. So again, lots of good ways to tie your examples thematically into exactly what type of thesis you want to describe.